Google announced this week it is well behind on a pledge to all but eliminate its net carbon emissions by 2030. Its emissions are actually up nearly 50% since 2019. One factor: artificial intelligence and the energy required to power it via the company's massive data centers. As economics correspondent Paul Solman reports, the AI arms race has experts worried about its climate consequences.
By now, you've probably seen ChatGPT, which economist Simon Johnson prompted to substitute for me in a recent story.
Good evening. I'm Paul Solman, reporting on a compelling new analysis that's stirring debate in economic circles.
Now meet Mary, a chatbot avatar companion created recently for us on the app Replica. She's connected to ChatGPT, but can also flirt on her own.
Are you always this irresistible?
And finally, here's 3D Amica. Albert Camus, in his book Le Mythe de Sisyphe, The Myth of Sisyphus, writes, On peut être vertueux par caprice.
On peut être vertueux par caprice translates to one can be virtuous out of caprice. Camus suggests that virtue need not stem from deeper philosophies or moral systems.
Amica, too, is hooked up to ChatGPT. How quickly can Amica respond? 15 milliseconds. That's how long it took.
Which is extraordinary, but the next question would be, how much energy does it take to make that whole process work, from ChatGPT to a robot and back?
A whole lot, says research professor Kate Crawford, and that poses a threat.
What I'm most worried about is that we're building an enormous infrastructure for artificial intelligence that is extremely energy and water intensive without looking at the very real downsides in terms of the climate impacts.
Like more brownouts in Texas, say, wildfires in California, stronger hurricanes in the Gulf, 126 degrees in Delhi this spring. Data centers had already been burgeoning with the internet and the so-called cloud of data storage and exchange.
Then we suddenly had cryptocurrency mining, adding a lot on top of that.
Amsterdam-based data scientist Alex de Vries. And as the value of cryptocurrency has multiplied, so have the data centers, like those that mine Bitcoin in cheap energy havens like Plattsburgh, New York.
This miner here will use as much power as my house does a month.
Says de Vries.
AI might be going in the exact same direction.
And notes Crawford, AI is not just going to stress the electricity grid.
These large-scale data centers, they use GPUs that are enormously heat-producing. And the water to cool these GPU chips is fresh water. So it's often coming from exactly the same reserves that are used for drinking water.
These are basically customer deployments where they're running their critical infrastructure and their applications.
Bill Strong runs the data centers in Silicon Valley for Equinix, which operates 260 of the nearly 11,000 centers that operate worldwide. The company leases space to firms like AT&T and Google Cloud to run servers that power their cloud and AI operations. And Equinix is expanding. This is where AI-like processors would go?
Correct. This is a high-density deployment, liquid cooled. So basically we're taking the building's chilled water, it comes into here, each one of these goes to an actual chip on a customer's server.
These are nozzles?
Correct. There's nozzles where there's a little ancillary tube that connects to the server, cools the chip, the hot air comes back, ties into our chilled water system, gets cooled, and that's how we're able to provide liquid cooling for these higher density AI type deployments.
This Silicon Valley complex alone features 345,000 square feet of servers, thousands of them, operating 24/7. The company's global energy budget as of last year, same as 750,000 U.S. homes. And what fraction of global energy use do the world's 11,000 or so data centers use?
We've had estimates from 2 to 8%.
But even at the low end,
2% is around the same energy budget as the Netherlands.
And if, as widely predicted, that doubles in 2 years,
we could see the energy budget be as high as a country the size of Japan.
Even now, a data center complex in Iowa, owned and operated by Meta, uses as much power per year as 7 million laptops running 8 hours a day. And of course,
We're in the very early days of artificial intelligence.
But as AI taketh away, it may also giveth. Christopher Wellis runs sustainability at Equinix.
What we don't know yet, for example, is what will be the benefits to society from an energy perspective.
Such as?
Air Canada is a customer of Equinix, and we're able to optimize their flight pathways and save fuel for them as a company. A lot of focus is on how much energy that AI is going to use, but the energy that's consumed, for instance, in training these large language models is not lost. You can think of it as stored energy. Once these models are trained, if they're retained, they can be used over and over and over again.
There are some signs that give me hope.
Even Kate Crawford agrees.
Researchers are now investigating different sorts of technical architectures, in particular what are called small language models. These are models that use much less data and therefore less energy. We're also starting to see regulators pay attention. We've seen the first bill be brought into Congress, which is looking specifically at AI's environmental impacts.
The solar panels are supplying 0.5 megawatt of power.
Case in point, Equinix itself.
When the solar panels are active, we're not pulling from the local utility source.
Okay, these panels fuel a mere 3% of the facility so far. But with solar capacity doubling every 3 years, maybe the sky's the limit.
Ultimately, I think that will all be very net positive.
Techno-optimist Reid Hoffman, the creator of LinkedIn, puts his faith in AI itself.
A much earlier version, 10 years ago, when it was applied to data centers, figured out how to save power in data centers by 15% in the ongoing week-by-week operation of the data center. So you go, well, if we're generating AIs that can help us with this kind of thing, sure, it takes a bunch of electricity to train, but then it helps us figure out how to operate our electrical grids much better. Right? And that's already line of sight today. So ultimately, I think the electricity worries is more of a red herring.
Really?
Yes.
But near term, warns Kate Crawford,
it's inevitable that we're going to see price increases if we continue to have these sorts of pressures on the electrical grid.
And so the age-old horse race between the costs of new technology and its benefits. In the case of AI, perhaps, to solve the problems it creates, or not so much. For the PBS NewsHour, Paul Salman in Silicon Valley.